Coming up, Universal announces their new land coming to Universal Studios Florida, and we are going to talk about our first impressions of Villain Con Minion Blast on this week's episode of the Diz Unplugged Universal Edition. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Diz Unplugged Universal Edition. I'm your host, Craig Williams. I'm joined alongside by my co-host, Rhino.
Hello.
Hello. And today we have a great episode for you. We're going to talk about Universal's newest land. We're going to talk about Illumination's Villain Con Minion Blast, which is now in technical rehearsals, and hopefully we'll have just a little bit of fun. But before we get to that, I want to remind you this is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel. If you like our content and you want to support us, book a vacation through Dreams Unlimited Travel. It costs you no extra money and you get the support of one of the awesome Dreams Unlimited Travel agents. So head over to dreamsunlimitedtravel.com today for that free, no obligation quote. Okay, Rhino, we should start off with the big news of the day. It's not that it was unexpected news. It was just unexpected for at least me. Ever since Woody Woodpecker's Kid Zone closed down, they threw up construction walls and it had DreamWorks characters all over it. It's just one of those things. You're like, yeah, that's what it's going to be. It's just waiting to know exactly what it was all going to entail. And today, Universal Orlando officially announces that it will be the new DreamWorks animation land, and it will open at Universal Studios Florida in 2024. The land will be filled with vibrant colors, sights, sounds. Characters like Gabby from Gabby's Dollhouse will appear. Interactive play spaces and attractions from franchises like Shrek, Trolls, and Kung Fu Panda will be part of it. And it's all part of a new collection of entertainment experiences debuting at Universal Orlando Resort in 2024, and a continuation of Universal's commitment to rich storytelling that places guests of all ages in the most incredible and immersive environments. And yeah, I think this is a great initiative. We talked about it a lot, after the Texas park announcement, after, Woody Woodpecker's Kid Zone closed, all of it. The more Universal can do for kids is awesome. And, I still will scratch my head at, is Shrek really relevant for kids? I think Trolls and Kung Fu Panda are still to an extent, maybe a little less for Kung Fu Panda, but nonetheless, it's maybe kids are growing up watching these movies too. Like Rory's too young for me to know what kids are actually watching. I mean, I know I'm going to be showing them DreamWorks movies and the classic Disney movies and all that, but I still wonder about their relevancy.
I think Jack Black just returned to do the voice of Poe for like an animated show that was maybe on like Netflix, or I would have thought Peacock, but I don't know. So, but I know he normally doesn't do the voice unless it's the movies, and then so I knew that was like a big deal. But I also thought I had read they were trying to make another Shrek movie too. So I feel like they've got this entertainment offerings that they're like literally trying to make relevant again in the like the film side of things.
I'm sure it's all very popular. It's hard for me because I'm at that weird in-between age where, like, even with a lot of the DreamWorks offerings, by the time they started coming out, like, I'm an adult watching Trolls and looking at it like, is this what kids enjoy? And I know it is. And, I feel like I outgrew Shrek in my heart. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about Villain Con Minion Blast. But yeah, I have full confidence in Universal with the decision of the properties that they're putting all together. I mean, Illumination and Minions are obviously having their space over in Minion Lands, and then with DreamWorks, you only have so many animated franchises to choose from, and like you're not going to put How to Train Your Dragon there, considering it's going into Epic Universe, so you kind of have to look what's left over. But I'm excited to find out what the actual like attractions and interactive play spaces are going to be like, because with losing Kid Zone, you lost a massive playground that kids would just run around on over and over and over. Beyond that, like the DreamWorks meet and greet, I'm sure there's still going to be something similar to that with the characters that will be there.
I know people are all aflutter for the the Shrek balloon it looks similar in type to like the Mickey Mouse Minnie Ears balloon. There's a green one with the troll ears. Troll ears. Good Lord. Shrek is an ogre, not a troll.
Yeah, get that right. Otherwise, it'll be your last day on this show. So
I'm trying to think of a clever quote from Shrek, but I have nothing.
Okay. That is fine. Well, you know what? Shrek will be relevant again in the future. I was trying to figure out the best wording to say with it. But right
what
now,
the heck?
What?
I said Shrek, what the heck?
Shrek, what the heck? I like that.
That was
one.
bad. Sorry.
No, that was good. That was good. So he will be relevant again in the future. But as we already said, Illumination's VillainCon Minion Blast has begun its technical rehearsals. It started on earlier this week on Saturday, I guess technically last Saturday, and has opened every single day at varying times. And I've had the chance to do it now a handful of times. Rhino had the chance to do it once before recording this, and we thought we would want to share our initial impressions. I didn't get out there on the first or second day. I got to experience it for the first time on Monday, and Rhino just did it yesterday on Wednesday. And I will say I don't hesitate in doing this because I think it's important to share first impressions, but at the same time, too, it is very much a technical rehearsal. I think a lot of people have pointed it out on social media that they're having issues with it, but not enough that it shouldn't be open and they can't learn from what's happening with the attraction in real time by having a bunch of people experiencing it. But there are definitely a lot of issues. So anything we say about it here is I want to be as fair as possible with it. Even after they fix some of the things that I think are wrong with the attraction, it's still never going to be my favorite. But I think they definitely came at it from an interesting angle, and I think it will be very, very popular with a lot of people. But the bugs have to get worked out of it to like be a good like mid-tier attraction, because this is not like Velocicoaster or Hagrid's. It's just not of that level, but it's also luckily not at the same level of Jimmy Fallon or Fast and Furious. I feel like it's solidly in between, and ultimately where I kind of rip on Shrek, I think this is a good replacement for Shrek 4D. I don't think that attraction was worthwhile anymore. It felt old. It felt dated. The pre-show was still fun, but the show itself just it had to go. And this is definitely fresh. The interactivity of it is a lot of fun, and it feels like it belongs in that entire Minion Land area now. But essentially, we'll go over the background of the attraction. It is a blaster style attraction where all the guests who are coming in, that could include you, you're coming into VillainCon, and you're hopefully trying out to be a new member of the Vicious Six, which is the villainous crew in the second Minions movie. And then I believe they pulled VillainCon from Minions, the first Minions movie. I've only watched them both once, and I did not care for the first one, so yeah, I feel like VillainCon was the whole thing with the first one, right?
Yeah, because it was when they finally ventured like out of the Arctic, I think they were in. It was like that's the first thing they saw, and they went there and they followed the Sandra Bullock character around, and she wanted to steal the jewels from the Queen of England, and that's how they ended up. Like, I think it was the Queen of England or something like that, and they ended up over there. And then I remember in the end, like Gru was in the crowd, and that was the big like, "Oh, baby Gru."
Yeah. And then in this one, the Minion, in the second one, Gru wants to be part of the Vicious Six. So that's where it connects in that plot. And so, yeah, the way for you to try out is to be able to grab your blaster and blast everything in sight on the attraction, which is a slow moving walkway that you stand in one place on during the entire thing. So there's 2 rows of dots that are staggered, and one on the right, one on the left, and it just keeps zigzagging back and forth. So that way, there is room between you and the other people on the moving walkway. I wish I had a visual to show from it, but right now, because of the technical rehearsals, Universal has a ton of signs posted out throughout the attraction, but there's no photos or videos. So unfortunately, we don't have anything to show from it. There was a very small media preview for it where they were able to take photos and videos of the queue. We weren't at that. We will be at the next one that they have, I guess, when it's getting closer to its actual grand opening or at its grand opening. And then we'll have all those assets to show off. But yeah, it would be a lot easier to showcase and describe. And I know there are plenty of people out there who have put it out there, even though they're not supposed to. I would encourage you, not to look at them, and also wait to see this stuff as much as possible with your own eyes. Make your own judgments on it. But it's definitely, the walkway is created and crafted to be able to turn and move as it's going in and out of the different rooms where there's different villains from the Vicious Six in each room. And it's just, I feel like the technical part of the ride, how they move people through it, I was very judgmental about how they were going to make a moving walkway interesting. I think they accomplished it. I think it was actually a good way to have a shooting style attraction where you're standing and it actually, it takes you through the entire experience and in an efficient way, more than getting in a seat and being pushed through. Like I think the walkway was actually successful for the most part. I say that as a man who is 6'4" and towers over people and also very wide. I think kids will struggle with it because there is a barrier on each side of the walkway that, it's a clear barrier, and then there's like the railing system with it. But if your kids are too short, I feel like they're going to have a very bad perspective of it, and they might even be at that right level where they just have like a terrible perspective of it at all. But if you're a small kid and then you're towered behind 2 massive adults, I feel like it's going to start to really have an impact on what you can see with it. And in terms of height requirement and such, there is no height requirement. The only necessary requirement with it is that the kids have to be able to stand for the whole attraction. They don't necessarily have to hold a blaster for it, which the blasters are relatively heavy. It's like not to the point where it's like, oh, my arms are so tired from holding this at the end. I think some little ones might feel that way, but I don't think they were that bad as what a lot of people were describing initially with it.
But I was thinking when we got to the end of the attraction, there's like the deposit for the blaster back where a cast member was standing, and I was surprised, or team member, I'm sorry, where I thought that team member was going to take it from us, because I was like, people are just going to throw these in here, and they're heavy enough that if you're throwing it into a bucket of other ones, they're going to smash it. And like, I was like, these are definitely going to end up starting to have some damage. Like that'll definitely change between what I experienced in like opening, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, as for other little parts of it, in terms of the queue, it's basically the same queue that Shrek 4D was before, except you're entering into the attraction from the further theater, not the closer one that you would always see people going into for Shrek 4D. So because of that, the way the queue is wrapping around, a lot of the queue right now is actually outdoors. And I don't mean even like in the covered outdoors. There's an outdoor section that's completely uncovered. And like we were there on the cusp of rain, and it was starting to get very nerve-wracking. So I mean, the problem is they would have had to cover the entire thing. But also, too, I'm not sure if after the attraction loses its initial glitz and glamour to it, I'm not sure if they'll need to utilize a lot of that outdoor queue on a daily basis, because the attraction eats people pretty well. I know the first time I got in it, the line, it just opened up. I was the first person to go into the attraction. So I can't say I had any wait because I didn't have any wait at all. It just took me through. The second time I got in line, it was posted as, I want to say, a 40-minute wait, and I only waited 20 minutes for it. So I'm not sure if it's just they're still trying to figure out wait times with it, but it moves people through pretty quickly. Like ours was posted at 25. Rhino, what do you remember what we actually waited for it? I want to say it
I'm
was
just
maybe
pulling it up.
around like
It was
20.
it was by the time we grabbed our blasters, it had been 17 and a half minutes.
Oh,
And
gosh,
then by the
yeah.
time we exited the attraction, it was 24 and a half minutes.
There you go. So yeah, even when it felt like it was a more realistic time posted, it still was able to get us through there very quickly. So I don't know how much of that's going to be used. So I don't really want to harp on it too long. I thought the queue videos that they did for it were very cute and entertaining. You know, it's kind of explaining the Vicious Six. It's like a newscaster that just is outlining the attraction for you. There's little trivia moments. There's a overview of what the blaster is like and about. So it really does a good job of setting up the attraction. The main problem is, for me with the queue, is once you get to the indoor portion and you're part of VillainCon, like they have these little displays that are set up around, like the Diabolique Boutique with clothes and the Corrupt Companions, where there's like this alligator in a tank, and it's all about like bad villain animals. Malicious Motors, that showcases what villains could ride around in with car and vehicles. Unlawful Outfitters, which was all like a weapons display. So there's all these cute displays, but the room is massive, and it feels like they could pile in stanchions and have like down and backs, so that way, you know, you can utilize more indoor space, but everyone's walking through this massive area in a single file line for the most part. And so it feels like there's so many people having to wait outside that could have been waiting inside if they would have just added more queue areas to it. But it's a minor thing. I think ultimately they want those areas to be photo ops, and to do that, you need to have that room. You can't be all smashed together in there. But I'm always of the mindset, if you can have people wait inside in Florida versus outside, why not do that?
Well, the wildest thing about the queue, like you said, is like it's like the closer you are to the entrance, the less covered it becomes. And so it's one of those where you think it'd be the other way around, because that way, like if it does start to rain, at least the people who've been waiting in line forever are still going to be able to get in the building without getting soaked. But it's like it starts under that heavy covered queue. Then you go out where they've got these like sunshade things that don't block the rain at all. And then the next extended queue is a bare bones naked queue. And so I get the thing with the photo op, because that like one area inside before you grab the blaster is cool. Like, and it has that same aesthetic that like Minions Cafe has, like that very like, here's exactly what Illumination cartoons look like when they're live action, you know?
Yep. So you do grab your blaster, the fully charged blasters, and eventually when the attractions open, you'll be able to use the Universal Orlando app to sync yourself to your blaster, so that way you can constantly keep score, and it'll continue to enhance the experience for you as you continue to do it more and more. Right now, it's just, you know, you're picking up your blaster and you're playing like that. The score that you have is on a little screen on the blaster, and there's two different triggers on it. The one just fires the gun, the other one like fires bananas, because that's bananas and it's Minions.
Banana.
And so it's a very simple concept. It's not like, you know, it's not like Toy Story Mania or Buzz Lightyear, where you have a score on a vehicle with you in that way. It's right on your gun, which I thought that was really cool. Like that's it's the only way to do it. When the gun is completely handheld and you're on that moving walkway, it's the only way to accomplish that. So you can see really, really well in real time if what you're shooting at is actually helping towards, you know, your overall score, which, you know, The first time I did it, I ended up with like a score in the 600,000s. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I just did. I just felt like I was shooting at random things. I was shooting at too many of the power ups that, change the gun. Like you hit these power up boxes in there and you can change your gun into like an electrical zapper or like the freeze ray. It helps your score go up a lot quicker. But I was shooting at those like nonstop, not realizing that like it wasn't really helping with my score. And then the second time around, I focused on other objects and I scored like 900,000. I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get the hang of it. Then when Rhino and I did it, I thought I finally perfected it. Like, I know exactly what I'm going to shoot at, and shooting around. And I had the lowest score that I had. And I don't even know how low it was because in the last room, our guns completely reset and our score started over again. So that's one of the bugs that it was having, which made it difficult to keep track. But I also, I think with it too, one of the things that I've experienced since I was like the first person on it, the one time I experienced it, and then Rhino and I had this weird gap because there was a family that needed to do a child swap and they weren't really wanting to do that. It left an awkward gap. The more people that are playing at the same time and are close to you, I feel like the higher you'll score. It just feels like there's more things happening the more people are destroying everything in each of the screens. So if you're kind of in like a weird bubble, you're not going to do as well. But ultimately, why does it matter if you're doing well? It's all about the fun of it. And yeah, it's very laggy right now. I feel like you move the gun around and it takes like a second for your target, which is the targets. You all each have an individual target that you can keep track of on each of the screens. So you know exactly what you're shooting at. So it's definitely better than Buzz Lightyear from that perspective because you can see where you're aiming. But I don't feel like it's as responsive as something like Toy Story Mania, which feels like immediately responsive to where you're aiming. But I feel like that's one of the bugs they just need to work out.
Yeah, I think it has like fun rewritability, but it was a little frustrating playing the game and being like, because it's VillainCon, so I was like confused, or I'm like, am I supposed to be shooting at the villains? Because like, wouldn't I not want to be shooting at the villains? And then like the minions are in there, and I'm like, should I be shooting at the minions? And I'm like, that doesn't feel right either. So I just kept shooting at boxes, not realizing like those were just power ups and not like more things. So that was tough. But I think whenever somebody finally cracks the understanding of the game and they like lay it out like exactly what you're aiming for, I think that'll make it a little more fun and interesting. But I liked how it responds to what you're doing. So it's not just like, oh, I'm just shooting at nothing and it's the same every single time. Like I feel like you have the ability to like change the screen. So I don't know. I think that's cool.
Yeah. And I honestly, I think that the gameplay style works really well, and like you said, it is, the screen is constantly evolving. Like it's not changing to be a different theme. Each room is differently themed, but it's not like it's completely swapping out and there's something that you've never seen before. It's just like when objects are destroyed, they'll reappear pretty quickly. So that way it's not like oh, we did everything. Since it's continuously moving, it needs to be able to update very quickly, and it does that. The one problem we ran into when Rhino and I did it together is there was one screen that was just completely off, and that was awkward. And it's like it was almost to the point where I was like, I don't know if they should have this open right now with this. It's just kind of like, it felt like so odd just slowly moving through a room, which like all the rooms are three-dimensionally themed, and then they just have the screens placed on them that you're shooting at. But when a screen isn't on, it actually like highlights that, yeah, they are themed in a three-dimensional way, but not really that well. So again, it's a little bug. It's why I'm not going to be hard on it right now. I'm not going to be hard on the lagging. I think there's something there. For me, it definitely falls. It's better than something like Buzz Lightyear, which I know you can kind of track your laser with Buzz Lightyear. But for me, it's always just been a little bit primitive in the blaster style attraction. Similar even to Men in Black. my wife worked at Men in Black for a long time, and she knows all the secrets. I have tried to get her to explain it to me. I still don't understand it. I don't get Men in Black as a whole. I just make sure that I hit the red button so I get a higher score. I just don't get that right either. I don't like the gameplay style on that. I prefer something more along the lines of Toy Story Mania, which I feel like it might hurt your arm a lot, but you basically see exactly what you're doing in real time and it works. It just depends if the strength of your arm can keep up with what you're doing on there. So for me, it falls slightly below Toy Story, but definitely above Buzz Lightyear or Men in Black.
I mean, I think I'd probably agree that it's definitely, because I think it's got more interactivity than those other ones. So I'd say for me right now, having that experience I had, I would agree with that placing.
Yeah. But again, it's in technical rehearsals. I don't know how long it will be in technical rehearsal. It is still due to open in summer, which of course that's what technically lasts until September. So it will officially open sooner and later, and hopefully they'll have all the little issues worked out. I don't think it's this like, oh, you need to drop everything and come to Universal and experience this right now, but it's going to be a very welcomed addition next time you head to Universal Studios Florida. And, that's how I feel about all of Minion Land. It's cute. I think it's much better than what was technically there before. I think it all just works. All has a cohesive theme now. No complaints. No complaints for me. And I've been back to Minion Cafe a couple times now. I just went with my wife the other day, and we split the pizza popover again, and then we also tried the beef sandwich with the cheese, and it was pretty good. It needed like a crunch or something to it, but it was pretty good. So I'm even Minion Cafe, I'm starting to get more and more attached to. So I feel like everything they're doing right now is great. I can't wait for it to officially be open. Everything's perfect. Hopefully it won't be too much longer. But any final thoughts from you, Rhino?
No, I am just I'm excited. I still haven't had the desserts, but I would say just for me, like after the experience I had, I know we talked about it, like how long we'd wait for the ride. I would say like for me personally, if it was like a walk on, great. If it was like 20 minutes, I'd be like, sure, maybe, I think over 30, I'm like, not for me.
On a busy day when we're talking like, everything is 90 minutes for the big attractions, I would probably wait 30 minutes for VillainCon Minion Blast. But on your average, slow day in the off season, if it's more than 15 minutes, not for me. But I don't want to say that has an impact to the quality of the ride. It's just what attractions are. I don't want to be mean on it. It's not fully done with it. There's other attractions I would rather dedicate more time to. This just isn't one of them. But that doesn't mean that'll always be the case. Once you can sync it to the app, it might jump up in my list and I'll be like, okay, I would wait a little bit longer for it now that I really want to continue the gameplay aspect and keep track of everything I'm doing. But that's once it's officially open. So I believe that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Dis Unplugged Universal Edition. If you've been to Universal Studios Florida and had the chance to experience VillainCon Minion Blast, let us know what you think. If you're watching this on YouTube, drop it in the comments, and you can also ask any questions, give us suggestions, do all that in the comments. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and if you're listening, you can head to YouTube and leave those comments or questions, or find the different ways to reach out to Rhino and I and share what you think about VillainCon Minion Blast. And for all you listeners out there, subscribe as well, and leave us ratings and reviews when possible. And if you want to support us more, book a vacation through Dreams Unlimited Travel. Get a free no obligation quote today at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Dis Unplugged Universal Edition. Thank you so much, everyone out there, for listening and watching. We truly appreciate it. We do it for you, and we hope you got something valuable out of it. And we will see you again real soon for another episode of the Dis Unplugged Universal Edition. Take care. Bye-bye. Remember, we still haven't changed the name.